Hi everyone, it's Claire here, and today's video we are going to take a look at how to get the longest lifespan out of your cloth pad stash. I am also celebrating reaching the 500 subscriber mark. Yay! Thank you so much everyone. I can't believe we have reached that milestone so quickly. So at the end of this video, I will be opening a giveaway. So if you would like to be in with the chance of winning a couple of free cloth pads, then stay tuned. But we're going to start off by having a look at how we can really keep our cloth pads in tip-top condition for the longest time possible. So our cores in good condition, stop any fading, how can we keep our toppers looking good? Because when you first come to cloth pads, makers and vlogs and blogs, etc., will all say cloth pads can last 5 years plus or 5 to 10 years. And that is often followed up with the line, if cared for correctly. Now that can be really confusing because each maker gives out slightly different wash routines, has slightly different views on drying, plus there's so much information online and everyone has a different way of doing stuff. So I thought we'd have a look at some of the basics really of pros and cons of different methods and how to basically look after our cloth pads. So the first thing I think we will look at, which seems the most logical place to start, is how we store our dirty cloth pads once we have taken them off. Now, this pretty much I'm going to put into 3 categories here, and that is wet storing, rinsing and dry storing, and completely dry storing. Now, it's worth mentioning that they all have like pros and cons, if you like, nothing too drastic or dramatic. So it's important that you have a wash routine that works for you. I mean, with my health problems, I do my all-in-one in the machine method that you've probably heard me talk about before in my videos, and you know, I wouldn't change that or how I store my pads because it's convenient for me. But there are some things to keep in mind, especially if you start seeing some effects on your pads that may make you consider swapping or just changing how you do some stuff. So firstly, let's look at wet storing. Now, wet storing is when you take off your dirty pad and you put it straight into a bucket, a bowl, a container of water. And it could be plain water, it could be water with some OxyClean powder in it. And basically your pads are stored wet in water for the duration of your cycle or until you decide to wash during your cycle. So up to 7 days, maybe a bit longer if you have a very long cycle, maybe wash in the middle. Now, with wet storage, people often really worry about bacteria. In fact, some people can really attack other people when they turn around and say they wet store their pads, which is absolutely absurd, like yelling at them, "You're going to get a disease." That is nuts. With wet storing, the key to not getting any funk, if you like, or any bacteria growth is making sure that you change the bucket of water every day. So you've got a fresh bucket, fresh water. It's not stagnant water because that's when you're going to get bacteria growth. So that is key, that you make sure you change your water, because as soon as that water goes really rank, bacteria will grow and you could get smells which will go into your pads and not very nice. So change your water every day. The next thing to think about with wet storage is basically fabrics are all made up of fibres. Now, particularly natural fibres are slightly more sensitive than things such as polyester, for example. However, if they're stored wet for long periods of time, it can actually degrade the fibres slightly and cause wear and tear on your topper. So that can result in thinning of the topper, it can result in some fading of the toppers, and if you are using a lot of flannel topped pads, it can really up the pilling. All flannel will pill eventually, just depends on the flannel as to when it's going to pill. but storing wet can really make the pilling a lot worse. So that may be something to bear in mind if you have flannel. Now, this is not going to, it's not like suddenly your pads are going to develop holes overnight or even in the first couple of years of wet storage. So as I said before, if it works for you, then that's great. But it is something just to bear in mind that if you do notice, oh, actually, my pads after a couple of years, they're starting to fade a little bit, or these flannel ones are really getting wear and tear now, they're pilling a lot and look like the topper's getting a bit thinner, then that may be a moment when you might want to think, oh, I might have to store those or try something a bit different with them, or you may not be bothered at all. But it is something to keep in mind. Now, the next thing is rinsing your pads once you take them off and then dry storing them until wash day. Now, risk factors here are not really so much to the fabric itself, as in like damaging the fibres, etc. It's more if you do not let them dry properly before storing them, then they can get mould and mildew and damp stink in them. And the damp stink is the worst. If you get a pad with damp stink, you can soak until the cows come home. It is extremely difficult to get that stank out of there. And if you do, many people report that the next time they use their pads and they get wet again, the smell rises to the top. So at all costs, we want to avoid the nasty damp smell. So it's really simple to avoid, and that just means once you've rinsed them, making sure they're either in an open lidded bucket, a very open wet bag, and you're not piling too many on top of each other so that the ones in the bottom are staying damp. That's really important, because if you're really heavy and you change frequently in your rinsing, the ones at the bottom don't get a chance to dry out. Now, to get around this, you can rinse them and then leave them on the side in your bathroom to dry out before popping them in your wet bag or however you're storing them. Some people rinse them and then put them on top of their laundry basket to dry out and then put them in a wet bag or put them in the laundry basket after that. Key is really just making sure that they have the room and the air getting to them so they dry, and then you won't have any problems at all. If you do get any kind of mould on your pads, even if you treat them with oxy and stuff and it comes out the top of the pads, I really recommend against using them for your cycle, basically, because although you can't see any mould on the top, you don't know if there's any in the core, and that's really not going to be healthy for your lady parts. So that's the main risks to your cloth pads with rinsing and storing. So key here, make sure they dry out. The next is taking your pad off, folding it and popping it in a wet bag or however else you choose to store it. And again, that's a dry storage method. Now, some benefits with this, it will dry out a lot quicker than if it's a rinsed pad. It's actually the method I use, but again, you still need to make sure that air can get in your wet bag. It can be quite tempting to pull the zip across and not even think about it, but you want air to get in there, because once the blood dries, it's not going to get smells, bacteria's not going to grow at accelerated rates on it or anything like that. So again, air is key. Now, next is to have a look at drying methods. Now, to all intensive purposes, air drying is the safest, if you like, inverted commas, method to use for your cloth pads if you want them to last the longest. Now, in summer, when it's really hot like it is today, you may hear me having a drink and the fan in the background. I'm sorry about that. It is massively hot here. And when you suffer with chronic pain and migraines, the last thing you need is a heat wave. Everyone else is loving it and outside sunbathing, and I'm like indoors in like a strappy top and shorts with like 30 fans, and like it's horrendous. And then when my pain's bad, I need my heat pad and it's like a sauna. Oh, anyway, I'm rambling. But anyway, drying is really easy to air dry in this kind of weather in particular. The only real downsides to it, and it's certainly not going to damage or harm your pads, is some people find, depending on the fabrics used, their pads go stiff, which is why a lot of people do prefer to use the dryer. Now, some makers say to dry in the dryer on cool, and some makers say you can chuck them in the dryer on standard settings. Now, if you've got a cool setting on your dryer, pop them in on that. They'll take a bit longer to dry because it's on a cool setting, but it shouldn't harm your pads, do anything to your pads at all. You won't have to worry. If, like me, you have a dryer that only has one heat setting, and that is the setting that is on, which is basically hot, then there are some things to keep in mind. Now, if you have made your own cloth pads, then you have been responsible for pre-washing and pre-shrinking your fabrics. Now, if you've done that on 60 in your washing machine and then you've dried it on hot in your dryer, however many times it's needed for that fabric, then you shouldn't have to worry and be able to put your pads in high heat in your dryer and not have any concerns at all. If you have purchased from a maker and you don't know how they have shrunken their fabric, what temperatures they've used, if they used a dryer or not, then one thing to be aware of, it's not going to damage your pads, but you could get some shrinkage. I've never had a pad shrink in the dryer more than about 1/2 inch, but if you're someone like me where you specifically need long pads, then it's something that you want to be aware of, that you could lose some length in the pad. Once it's been in the dryer a couple of times, it will stop shrinking altogether, and then you won't have any problems, just as if you'd made them yourself. But it is something to bear in mind, and you could also lose a little bit width once snapped wise. So if those things are important to you, then you might want to just try one in the dryer from a maker that you've got and see how it comes out. People often worry about PUL, and is using the dryer going to shorten the life of your PUL pads? The short answer here is no, it won't. That's because PUL was actually made for the medical industry, and it is made to withstand higher heats, just like it's made to be pretty much like as water resistant as you can get, without being, without being not breathable, because it's got like little holes that work one way in it. So it is a breathable fabric. It will not be harmed in the dryer though, so you don't have to be concerned about PUL. A lot of people are really worried about PUL in the dryer, but it is fine. The next thing to have a look at is ways of stain treating. Now, this can shorten the length of life you get out of your pads if you are not cautious, but if you get overzealous with your stain treating. Just recently in one of the groups on Facebook, a lady had a really stubborn stain and someone recommended going at it with a toothbrush. That is not something you want to do. It will scrub away at the fibres on your toppers, and it will weaken the fibres, it will thin the fibres over time. Oh, hello, Ellen. Ellen, say hi, everyone. And it's just generally not very good for your pads. Most stain treaters, like the bars, if you've got Fell's Nap or something, then you can just, oh, Ellen, oh dear, move your bum out of the way, people don't see your bum. Then you just pop your stain treater on. And the thing with stain treaters is they actually don't need a huge amount of rubbing, because they will soak in and then break down the protein in the stain. Now, things like Ecover stain remover actually comes with a little plastic brush attached to it. Now, with that, it's really important to take it, but don't apply pressure. If anything, you can just go in a circle quickly on the stain, no pressure, just literally really light, and then you're done. Don't take a toothbrush to it or a scouring sponge. I've heard people mention, ooh, it makes me cringe. Don't do any of that, because you could damage your pads. If you do want to agitate a stain, it's particularly stubborn, and you're like, that is going to need some agitation, Claire, then what I do with mine is I put the stain treater on. You have to excuse this pen. I was tracing out cores, and I seem to have got more on my hands than on the fabric. Put your stain treater on, and then without using any pressure, just smush the two together. I'm not using any pressure at all now, and I'm just literally agitating it a bit. Then set it aside, and you are good to go. Now, a word on sunning. Sunning is really good if you have a very, very stubborn stain and you've tried everything to get it out and it will not leave. It is just the stain of doom. Then sunning is a great thing to use, a great method. But basically it is bleaching out that stain. It's not actually breaking down the protein in a way of a stain remover. It's bleaching it out. So it's fine for like a once-off stain. If you've got a stubborn stain, something's happened, but you don't want to be sunning all of your pads regularly because it will bleach the colour out of the patterns on your pads over time, and it can be quite damaging to the look of them. So if you're someone that really likes your pads to stay nice and pretty and you spend a lot of time shopping for fabrics, etc., then you really don't want to be doing too much sunning for your stain treatment. And last, no, not last, there's two more actually I could think of. The next, what's second to last, is a word on stripping. Now, using bleach for stripping, this actually came from the cloth nappy community, and stripping has become quite popular for people to recommend with bleach if you've had things like thrush, for example. Now, if you have had thrush, so a candida infection, you do not need to use bleach to kill it in your pads. Now, as someone who has suffered with recurrent thrush, I know how the panic can set in and you want to get rid of any way that that thrush could come back, but you honestly don't need bleach. If you wash your pads on a 60 wash in the machine, it will kill the thrush in your pads. Now, I understand wanting to take further steps because I have taken further steps before. If you want to take extra steps, before putting them in the machine, spray them down with 3% hydrogen peroxide. Leave them for about 20 minutes. That will kill off any thrush. Put them in your 60 wash and then you're done. If on top of that you want to literally go supernova on it, you want to really get in there, on your natural fibre toppers, don't do it with Minky because you'll melt it and it'll be very bad. You can actually run a steam iron over the top of them to be literally triply sure. But if you are putting them in a hot dryer, it pretty much does the same thing as well. So you can be assured that your thrush is dead. You don't have to worry about that. There's also no need for regular stripping to strip out germs. Some people feel they need to do a regular strip to get rid of germs. If you have laundered your pads correctly in the washing machine, you've got a good wash routine, there is no germs in your pad. You do not have to freak out about germs. Another one is if you've accidentally used fabric softener. For that, you can just put half a cup of vinegar into your washing machine on the softener drawer part, and that will strip, if you like, any softener that is on your pads. If you only use softener once though, it really isn't a huge emergency. If you've used a whole bottle of it because you didn't realise you bought a 2-in-1, then you can do a wash with some vinegar and it will take it right out of there. So be very careful with stripping. Bleach is not good for you, it's not good for the environment, and there's plenty of other ways to get rid of pretty much anything you want to get out of your pads. And last but not least is just a quick word on drying straps. Now, a drying strap, if you haven't seen one, it's basically a long strip of fabric like this, 2 poppers, one end, one the other, and you put it over your banister. It could be your shower pole, it could be over the washing line so your pads don't blow away, and you clip it like so it's nice and secure hanging. and then you clip the popper from one of your wings of your pads onto here, and then the next wing to the next one, and you hang them up. Now these are awesome. I absolutely love these. But something to be aware of is if you do have a lot of heavies, a lot of nights, a lot of really long pads or postpartum pads you're using, then make sure that you pop those heaviest pads at the top of your drying strap, and then you put your lighter pads, your liners, your lights, your regulars at the bottom. Because if you do it the other way around, your heavy pads will pull on your lighter pads, and it can pull on the cord, twist the wings, and just really misshape them, especially if they have got jersey type toppers. So be careful not to overload your drying straps, so have a couple of them and keep the heavy pads at the top, lighter pads at the bottom. So I think that's it. Everything I can think of right now to really get the most out of our cloth pads, because there's nothing more disappointing than if something happens to one and you can't use it anymore. Now to our giveaway. As I mentioned earlier, we have reached 500 subscribers. I am so grateful that everyone's been watching my videos and subscribing, and a huge thank you to you all. I have great fun making these videos. So to celebrate, I thought I would do a giveaway. Now, the way I'm going to do it is basically the winner of the giveaway will get to choose their length and absorbency of pad that they would like, and I will make you some. These are some of the ones I have just made. And I will surprise you with a topper, and you will get 2 pads, like I say, of your choice. So you might want a 12-inch night pad, or you might want to try one of my mega pads. It's a great chance to get some of my pads before they're actually on sale. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is to have subscribed to my channel and to leave a comment down below with your favorite topper fabric for your cloth pads. If you are new to cloth pads and you don't know what topper fabric you like yet, then you can actually comment below with the type of design you like. So you might like owl pads or this raccoons, you know, whatever creative thing you would like to put. You can put both if you want, that you like cotton toppers and you like cat pads, whatever it is, comment down below and I will gather up all of the names. I'm not going to do it with one of those. I don't like those computer things where it does it for you, because it's, I don't know, it's really impersonal. I don't like it at all. So basically the giveaway is going to run all week until next Monday. What is the date next Monday? I don't know. I'll write the date down in the description. To be honest, I can't remember what day it is today. And I'm going to print everyone's names off. I will put them in a bowl and then I will draw it on here for everyone to see who the winner is. So that's just a little thank you for everyone who's been so supportive, and a special hello to everyone from the Amy Nix group. Love you all. And that's it from me. So I will speak to you all soon. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Bye.